Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. Welcome to the Serene View. For those of you who are joining me for the very first time, my name is Serene, and obviously I'm the host of the Serene View. And as usual, we'll be doing constructive arguments. If you're wondering what's constructive argument, constructive argument is really about inviting healthy disagreements in the world. I think too much of social media is really about, an echo chamber. We only hear what we already agree with, and it's polarizing the world. So we want to see kind of all the different views of every issue. And this week, we are going to talk about, are humans naturally, by nature, kind or cruel? And today to debate this with me, I have Gary Young, who I would actually characterize as one of the good people of the world. I mean, the guy has gone the whole hog, right? I mean, he actually has a social enterprise. He actually is doing social mindfulness. I mean, you name it. He ticks every checkbox, right? And I personally think he's delusional, but I will still invite Gary to come up and introduce himself and let us know a little bit about what he's doing. So Gary, over to you.
Thanks, Serene. It's a pleasure to be here first and foremost. I really support what you're doing, and I completely agree with the need for this so that we can help discussion to come into the public domain in a way that people can disagree but still do so on friendly terms. I think the last year and a bit has really highlighted how important that is. But yeah, in terms of very brief introduction to myself, you've given most, in terms of being the founder of the Mindful Enterprise, social enterprise that specializes in mindfulness, well-being and resilience. And we really do believe that if we can offer different services to people that they can really resonate with and take on as a personal practice, then it can really enhance their lives significantly. And from that place, they can really positively influence others around them too, and the wider world. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. And my journey into this was after 23 years working in a corporate career, which was more of a kind of what I would say was probably more of a sort of selfish mission. It was purely about kind of it was trying to earn a living and create a nice lifestyle for myself and my family. But I did get to the point of realization that it was not sustainable for me to remain in that industry within banking because I had started to understand more broadly about I guess my responsibility to those around me and my responsibility to the wider world. So to try and help address some of the problems we have in the world. So that kind of gave me the impetus to take a different path and move into well-being. Here I am. So it's not been easy to transition from that world into this new world I'm in, but it's certainly been valuable.
So you were with the evil people and now you have reformed and you have come over to the good side.
Yeah.
Left the dark side and joined the Jedis.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
And today we are really talking about, what is human I think we had this discussion after Mark's session. So I had a session with Mark Leonard. And after that, we sort of got into discussing about whether humans were innately kind or cruel, mean, or compassionate. And I think on this, Gary and I have really different views. Quite obviously, the one who started the arguments agreed that humans are mean by nature, and Gary thinks humans are kind by nature. And we've actually posted quite a few articles. If you've not seen it, we've started off with the first one, which is what is human nature. So let's start with a few definitions, right? What do you think is human nature? And for those of you who are watching us, right, feel free to post it in your comment if you're disagreeing with anything that we say right now, and feel free to put in your definitions of human nature. So what do you think is human nature, Gary?
It's a good question. I think to me that it's about our values of understanding our kind of role in this life as a human being. And I believe that we're here to learn lessons, to grow through those lessons, to remember who we are, at a deeper level. So if we talk about spirit, soul level, whatever, just to understand our true inner nature, and recognize the power that we have, and the power to create, the power to make positive change, the power to grow, and the power to, I guess, to look after the planet, for me, and all the kind of human values of, within that I think we need to go through more of a spiritual awakening kind of process before we really truly understand our innate human values. And I think for me, because I wasn't aware of my values before I stepped onto this journey, I really didn't know what they were. I didn't really know who I was either. I was pretty confused.
So would you say that, okay, so I think since we're talking about definitions, right? I mean, to me, human nature is like whatever that we are born with, right? I mean, like whatever that we are innately with, quite apart from, subsequent enlightenment, right? So actually, the fact that you started off evil seems to be supporting my side. I don't know. I mean, this is something that, okay, Edmund agrees with me. He thinks we're kind of mean. Yes. So, yeah. I mean, to me, when I say human nature, I'm really talking about like, what is the innate substance of being a human, right? What is the innate tendency? I think some people disagree with the fact that I quoted both Confucianism and the Bible. But really, like, when you're born, what are you born like? Yeah. So I agree with Edmund, and actually I think you agree with us, because you were like, for many years not doing good, and then subsequent enlightenment doesn't count. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, this is interesting. I actually think that there's many variables to this, and I it's not clean cut as in we're either kind or we're mean. I feel if we think about when we arrive in this world as an expression of pure love, we come in there, we're coming into the world from another dimension, wherever that may be, whether it's the seventh dimension or that some people would suggest, or whether it's somewhere completely different. We're arriving here as a being of love and light. In my it resonates with me when I've explored those topics, but we also come in here with things that we've acquired through our ancestral lineage, so mum and dad, and so we're coming into this life with already some genetic components, a genetic profile, and we also have this thing that we call the shadow, which is something that we all have, where we can be unkind sometimes. We can have maybe some meaner sides to us that I think we all have. And I think our journey in life is to come into a higher place of awareness about recognizing these different sides of us, and being able to accept and honor those for what they are, but also decide if we want to make change so that we can become more aware of some of our tendencies and habits, and then with positive intention, maybe some more mindful ways of living, we can actually see an opportunity to behave differently, to act differently.
Well, I mean, I've just put in a post really about research on how we are the worst. I mean, research on the worst of human nature, and I think one of the things is this: a lot of us are, shall I say, fairly delusional, in the sense that I think we all think we are better than we are. And we all think that we are more good, more kind than we are. One of the research pieces in that link actually says that even convicted criminals, like convicted hardcore criminals, think that they are kind and nice people. So I think this, like you said, this whole journey of, we should be moving towards more and more kindness. But I think sometimes that, I don't know. I mean, are we actually kind? I mean, do we just think we are a lot kinder than we are?
Well, I think there's probably something in that, and I would say that I think it was Eckhart Tolle that said the quote of nothing's ever good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So I think, you know, we do have a tendency for self-protection and self-preservation. So we want to be seen by others, I think, as being a good person, being kind, benevolent, well-meaning, successful, all the different things that can occupy our minds. But yeah, so I do think that perhaps we can maybe have an impression of ourselves that maybe is not completely accurate. Maybe others have a very different perception, but I think it can also be the opposite as well. We can sometimes have a view of ourselves that's a bit less kind, and maybe others would have a different view as well. You know, sometimes we can be quite self-critical.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think we had an article today about, you know, really why are people being cruel? And one of the things that came up is actually that people feel that they need to be cruel. They feel that they need to suffer in order to feel better and in order to grow as a human being. So a lot of the times we are a lot, I guess, you know, we lack self-compassion and we're a lot more cruel to ourselves simply because we feel that that's the way that we can grow, and we are cruel to other people as well for the same reason. I don't know, in your own opinion, I mean, you've worked with so many people as a mindfulness coach. Do you feel that there must be some evil so that we can grow, some cruelty involved so that we can grow?
Well, again, I think if we go back to the shadow side that we have, you know, there is an element to us all, I think, where we are capable of doing things that are maybe perceived as negative or unkind. But I think, you know, if we think about where that originates from, I think, you know, we come into this life, as I touched on earlier, with some, you know, through the ancestral lineage, with some kind of, you know, genetic profile and some kind of things that are cause us adversity in this life, things we have to navigate and overcome. And I think if we inherit perhaps some of the traits, characteristic traits and whatnot from our parents that you know, that we've learned as a child picking up, but also things that are really innate to us because we're coming in with that profile. And I think depending on how our life has begun as a child, whether we had a really stable and loving environment, and if we really felt that love from our parents and people around us, we were really nurtured well.
Can I interrupt you and say this? Okay, I am a parent myself, and I'm not sure if you are a parent, but I'm presuming so. I mean, yes. Can you honestly say that you have never traumatized your kid? Like, does that even happen in human experience? Look, I know we're not like deliberately going out there to abuse them, but as you say, right, a lot of us carry, you know, triggers from before, and I think Edmund has hit. I love this, you know, the kindness Dunning-Kruger effect, right? I mean, we probably all think we're good parents. I don't think anybody, any of us, I don't know whether Edmund is, tell us if you are a parent, Edmund, is going around thinking, oh, we are nasty, cruel parents. But at the same time, you know, are you sure? I mean, how are we going to say that we have not negatively impacted our child, right? There are so many times I've caught myself where the slightest, you know, comments that I make, after that, I found out that, oh, he was very hurt by this thing I said. And I was like, you know, I never meant it that way. And, you know, so to say that we are cruel because of I think Kathy said this as well in the post, that it is the result of the trauma that we face. I don't actually think that's fair. I don't think there's any human being that can say they've never faced trauma. They've grown up perfectly well in totally loving environments and never gotten any traumatized by their parents.
Yeah.
I think that's putting too high a bar on parents. Don't you think?
I agree with you that I think it's unavoidable that you know, parenting is a minefield in terms of trying to get everything right. It's just not possible. I don't believe, and I think we can only love based on the level of consciousness that we're at. And I think really the more our consciousness expands, the more that we can heal from any you know, any previous emotional traumas. We know already that children's minds are very suggestible in the first 7 years of life. They absorb everything at lightning speed. They're taking things into their subconscious that are impressions that they're making of things that are going on around them, which often are develop into beliefs and perceptions that are not accurate and not true. But it can really dominate the way that humans then behave as they grow into adults even. We're still acting from a place of this subconscious trauma or impression that we've created. And I think the parenting is I think we definitely can traumatize our children without even knowing that we're doing it. And again, it comes up for me, if I look back on my parenting journey, I can already say with certainty that I made mistakes and I did things that would have emotionally traumatized my child, not in a deliberate way, but in an unconscious way. And now I'm in a different level of consciousness. I can look back and reflect and say, actually, if I had the chance over again, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't make that same mistake. I wouldn't repeat that. I would be more present with my child. I would prioritize them and give them my full attention when they were really needing it. I would, all these kinds of things,
No, but I tell you what, Gary, I have these thoughts like several times a week, like, oh, I must be more present with my child. Oh, I must, not traumatize them. But it's one thing between the aspiration and another thing with the implementation, right? I think Edmund hit it on his head, right? It says the great majority of people are not kind. They are not mean, but they're not kind, right? So as parents, I don't think we are actively cruel to our children. Okay, I take it back. Not all parents are actively cruel to the children. There are definitely those, but I think the majority of parents are not actively cruel, but they're not kind, right? In the sense that we are not, present, compassionate, loving. I mean, what else there is, right? I mean, because I don't know which world you live in, but I live on the other side of heaven. And I think, like what Edmund says, right? Kindness is aspirational, but it's a function of your environment. Well, easier if you have not been bullied, harder if you have to fight for your self-hood. But actually, Edmund, can I like go one step further on that environment bit, right? I think it's easier if I don't have to work for a living. I don't have to, deal with the stresses of life. I'm some retired billionaire sitting somewhere in a beautiful villa with a sea in front of me and a cocktail in my hand. Yes, I can be wonderfully kind to my child and present with him all day. But the truth is, I have a job. I have, stuff I need to get done. And, I don't have help in the house and so on. So there's so many other things in my environment, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, go on. Yes.
No, I think you're right. I think there are so many environmental pressures around that our lives are very, very different from one person to the next, and we're all dealing with different kinds of stresses, different kinds of pressures. And as you said, in the ideal world, we would not have all of this pressure, and we would be able to bring up children in a very nurturing environment where we could be very present with them. We could attend to all their emotional needs. We could make them feel loved, cared for, supported, give them the attention they need, play with them often, help them to grow, but do it in a conscious way where we're just there as a guide rather than telling them what to do or giving them the answers to everything, which is a problem we have in our society right now with our education systems. We don't allow the children are little geniuses, and we should be nurturing them in a way where we're just guiding them and allowing them to explore and really find out all the answers for themselves, because that comes from within. There's an inner knowing within us, I believe, with our connection to nature. And we don't need to indoctrinate children with other knowledge and beliefs that perhaps is unhelpful. So, but I agree. In an ideal environment, we would be able to really give children perhaps the parenting that they really deserve. But it's not. In the way we live, it's not practical.
Yeah. And actually, there was we had an article that talked about some of the good findings, right? Like, the flip side of it, that people are still selfless, are still good. And I want to bring back to what Edmund said, the second half of it, which is, look, if we are doing all that to our children, like in good conscience and trying our utter best, we are being unkind to them, then do you think that is a big contribution of why people are behaving like this, that why people are behaving still behaving cruelly to each other and so on? I mean, is it really in our kind of nature, or are we like kind of born good? Because some of these articles show that despite all that, children as young as 2 are selfless, right? So yeah. Are we actually born good, and then all this trauma is causing us to be ill?
Yeah, I think there's an element of definitely the early experiences of life can impact on our level of suffering that we have, and therefore a lot of the times that we're unkind or cruel, consciously and unconsciously, is an expression of a deeper suffering. Because if we are really connected emotionally in terms of feeling very loving, joyful, grateful, all these elevated emotions, then we will not tend to be cruel or unkind to other people. We just wouldn't express that. We would express what is on the inside, and it's love, and it's gratitude, and it is compassion, and really being in tune with our own feelings, and therefore in tune with the feelings of another human, and therefore we would rather not see people suffer. I think we project our own suffering onto others through our actions, and I think this is where the where the mindfulness can play a very positive role, because it gives us the insight and the awareness to be able to see in the moment how we are acting, how we're feeling, the thoughts that are occupying our mind, and we can be more observant of that all those all those aspects moving through together, and we can make a choice in the space of whether we want to attend to the thoughts and react to them, or whether we want to respond or react to the impulse of an emotion with some kind of a behavior, or whether we want to be able to manage that and then choose a different way to respond. And I think when we do that, we're actually changing pathways in the brain that may have in the past been priming us to be reactively mean or cruel or angry. This is how mindfulness can help to change the brain.
So if I summarize what you said, you feel that we are innately good, noble, and we are just reacting kind of mindlessly sometimes, and therefore cruel. But that if we would just be a bit more mindful, be a bit more present, we'll be more kind. There's actually an article which I was busy trying to cook up that says when you are mindfulness breeds selfishness in people. The people who practice more mindfulness become more selfish. I'm not sure if I read it, but I will definitely get the article up. And meanwhile, Edmund has also chimed in to say that it's the old saw, right? To know sweet, you must know sour. You can't raise children in a bubble. And a child brought up in a very protective environment may not operate effectively in the real world. And if the above makes sense, then the operating philosophy would necessarily imply a mean world. Yeah. And actually, this was something we were discussing just today in the article from BBC, which I will pull up right now so people can see it. Right? It's really that: do we need to suffer so that we can be stronger? We can be prepared for the real world. We can grow as human beings and develop things like resilience. Or actually, is it better for us to be brought up in a loving way? Does does being brought up in a loving way give us more resilience, or does being brought up in a kind of harsher, I wouldn't say cruel, but harsher environment give us more resilience? And actually, I think Edmund is with me in the camp of they need to suffer to get tough, that it still must be tempered. What do you think?
I think life is, by its very nature, we do have to endure an element of suffering. And if we think about the growth process, I don't think we can grow without an element of pressure. I'm not going to call it suffering, because everybody relates to that process differently. But we need to endure some pressure, and for many people there is suffering involved in it, because growing pains and all that, we need to endure experiences that are sometimes ones that we would regard as where we feel that we've failed, or we feel that we've maybe not performed as well as we could have done. And then we learn the lesson, whatever the lesson was. Perhaps we didn't prepare enough for it. We needed to work more on a certain skill to be better at something. So there is an element of suffering there, but from that we can grow and become stronger. And that creates resilience. And I think some people, depending on how they cope with disappointment or perceived failures, can determine how resilient that we can become. Because some people get overwhelmed by these situations, and they go down, they go under. But I think that again is
I wanted to say that it's the other way around, right? It's not that we will all suffer, okay, so that's a very almost like a Buddhist thinking, life is suffering, and okay, but no, that's not the point. The thing is that should we create, right? Like what Edmund is saying, longer bit with better results. Should we create, harsh environments? Should we be mean and cruel so that we can be kind, right? I mean, there are so many instances. I think you probably are familiar with the Asian concept of a tiger mom, right? Mothers who are, disciplinarians, who are, basically drill sergeants, pushing their kids to excel and so forth. And the thing is, do we need that level in order for the children to be able to reach the level of greatness? So that's a question. And then I think follow-up one is, the issue is how to bring negative experience of children back to something that they can appreciate and give kindness. So no, we'll worry about that later. Let's look at the whip first, right? Do we need a long whip to push them? There was a 3-minute talk on TED about how people succeed, and one of the quotes I remember to this day is that you have to push yourself. And then Frank Gehry, I think, was the guy who was quoted as saying that it's not easy to push yourself, right? So he said, "My mother pushed me." Right? And that is the philosophy behind a lot of Asian parenting, right? That we push our kids, because I'm human myself. It's very hard to push yourself. So sometimes you need somebody else to push you, and that's that pressure that that sometimes could be fairly intense pressure. I mean, kids are killing themselves from this, just being afraid that they will disappoint their parents with their exam results.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So we need that to get that level of greatness.
I think it can. I think there's a healthy balance in there, because I think that kids that endure parents that are very pushy with trying to succeed, etc., I think they will carry with them that trauma or that fear of not being accepted or successful enough in the eyes of their parents or whatever. And I don't feel that just because somebody becomes successful, they may create something, they may create a successful business financially, they may have a nice house and a nice car, but what is success? I would prefer to see parents empowering their children, not disempowering them. And I think you disempower a child when you dominate and dictate to them and push them. I think we have to allow children to make their own mistakes. And I think we can give them the support. And if we see that maybe a child is making repeated mistakes and they're not listening and not getting the lessons, then I think parents can do certain things that can maybe be deemed as being a little bit like tough love or a bit harsher that can really help to get that lesson understood so that the child can grow and benefit from that, and done in a still done in a kind way. You know, I think it's to do with the way that we communicate it with the child. And I've seen myself in more recent times, because my son's 17 now, and having conversations with him where I've said, look, you know, I can sit back and do nothing here, and I can allow you to continue going as you are. And just know that if you continue to go as you are, this could be where it ends up. Or I can come in here and I can offer something to you that may make you think about your actions and how to do something differently. Or I can come in with the heavy hand and I can make your life more intolerable. Which would you rather?
So I think that was Edmund's follow-up comment as well, right? Is to how do you bring these negative experiences back to something that they can then understand, appreciate, and integrate, right? So a bit like the sense making. I guess at 17, probably there's not that much necessity, but I found with my son, my son is only 7, that there's a lot of need for sense making. A lot of stuff that we say that we may not even mean, they interpret it quite badly. And to reinterpret it, to go like, look, this is the reason why we push you. This is the reason why we say the things we do. These are the negative consequences that could happen. I will not say that he has taken my advice on most issues, is the way I will put it. I will say that he still retains his right to his own opinion on our actions. Mainly he doesn't agree with what we are doing. But I think making the effort to make some sense making, that's useful. This is the talk that I was referring to in about that. And this is the one where BBC says that, you know, mindfulness can make you selfish. Yes.
It's interesting. I want to read that. I'm curious about it. I
you
don't
want to
agree.
read it? Oh, yeah, I'll send it to you. Actually, I will. If any of you, I'm not sure if any of our listeners want any of these texts, I will just leave it out long enough for you to be able to Google it. But if you want it, I can put it into the comments. I did once put everything into the comment, and then I got some feedback to say that there were just too many comments. But just have a look at it. And the other one where Frank Gehry said, this guy quoted Frank Gehry as saying that, you know, his mother pushed him. I think on the topic of cruel to, you know, good, can I say this, that do you feel that people are innately one to the other, like you have to fight it? So for example, you know, like the Bible says we are evil, we have to fight evil all our lives to try and, you know, swim upward towards good. Or do you feel that humans are essentially neutral, like it really doesn't matter what we are, and, you know, as life comes about, it will affect us?
I don't think we can say that humans are either one thing or the other. I do believe that there is a mix there, and I think that we do come into this life with already some some components which could be, you know, things that we have to work through to improve on certain characteristics we've inherited. But, you know, if we believe in the idea that we come into this life having, you know, agreed a soul contract to have certain experiences in this life, then we're maybe coming into this life to experience things so that we can learn from them and then ultimately grow from them. It doesn't always happen that way, but I do believe that kind of resonates with me. But I also feel that, you know, this idea that you were talking about the you know, are we innately mean or kind? I think really if we believe that our journey in this life at some point, it might not be in this incarnation, it could be in another incarnation, that we are to try and ascend to become a fully realized human being, whatever that means, then to me that journey is about learning about all the different traits and all the things that we do that maybe cause negative situations, suffering to others, suffering to the planet, and get to the point where we go home to our default, which is love and joyfulness and compassion.
I want to say this, right? Okay, so we've had the same discussion online in LinkedIn, and Elaine has came out to say that, I mean, in his post, he said that, he believes that human nature is innately noble, and that wherever there is cruelty, it is the absence of light, right? That means our nature is noble, but, if we are traumatized under the dark shadow or whatever, which is kind of what you are saying, that, we have come to this earth to, do certain learnings and eventually we will ascend. I was going to ask you, what if I believe the opposite, right? Just for the sake of argument, what if I believe the opposite? I believe that we have evolved from baser creatures. We have evolved from monkeys, from fishes, from mammals. And what is our job here? Very simple: pass on our gene, fight to survive, make sure that you procreate and pass on your gene, and that this life is all that we have. So when you look at a lot of our actions in that light, like a lot of, for example, CEOs are psychopathic, right? They are, they look at what needs to be done to get ahead in the system, and then they do it and they get ahead in the system. And obviously a lot of them get condemned, right? Oh, they are mean, they are cruel. But if you look at it, our nearest genetic cousins, which are chimpanzees, rape on a regular basis, right? Raid on a regular basis, beat up and torture each other on a regular basis, right? Why do they do it? So that they can get their genes passed on.
Yeah.
So, and I think, are we the ones bringing in this morality? Emin has come on. Oh, Emin says that he has let his kids have the right to challenge his pronouncement and have an adult discussion. Well, okay, they are 23, 21, and 19. Arguably, Emin, I think they are already adults, and I think you should have an adult discussion with them. But what do you think? I mean, do you think that you have so you brought them up, you set them off into the world, they are on their journey to go out as adults. Do you think that they are, innately good, innately evil? Do you think that, you have done what needs to be done? Because I think a lot of it is, if you want to succeed in this world, it requires you sometimes to play by the system, and the system isn't set up so that the kindest, nicest people win.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think what we're seeing in the world is that, unfortunately, the people that tend to emerge into the positions of power are not really the people that we want there, and normally traumatized individuals. And if we go to a higher level, I saw in one of the articles that you shared about, psychopathy and sadistic people. I think people that get to certain levels of wealth and power, and they've got this lust for control, and unfortunately, I think some of them have got psychopathic traits within them, sociopathic traits, and I think they're ultimately, although their PR would maybe show them in a very positive light, I think they're actually causing a lot of damage in the world, because they're projecting their own suffering onto other people and onto the planet. And I think there's a lot of ideologies involved as well, which we perhaps don't fully understand, but I'm very curious about this, and I do think we're now starting to see this in the world. Particularly, there's been a light shone on it over the last year and a half with the COVID situation, and we've now seen a lot of characters emerge into the light that are talking in certain ways and displaying certain behaviours that I think is showing the world something quite clearly. And this is about leaders across the world. So I think that your question about children, I really do think that it depends on the upbringing they've had in terms of how they go out into the world. They'll still maybe carry with them their shadow side, where they're capable of moments of cruelty or meanness, but I believe that we're here on an ascension path, and the ascension path is to become a fully realized human being, whatever that means for you. But I think that it really is this, you want to talk about Jesus Christ and an ascended master, someone who gets to that place of enlightenment. I think I do believe in that path.
Right. No, I was going to like interrupt you to say that ascension and enlightenment means many different things, and I'm not utterly convinced that. Okay, so I've heard it until it comes out of my ears, right? That all religion lead people to good and yada yada, and no, that's not true. The Vikings had a religion that compelled them to go out and rape and pillage, so that is not true. Right, so ascension and enlightenment mean very different things to many different people. This is the article that says that psychopaths succeed in the world, and I think the one job with the most psychopaths by percentage is CEO. And the thing that I'm trying to say is that it's one thing to say, yeah, we should all ascend, we should all be enlightened. It's quite another thing in practice, right? Look at this whole vaccination versus non-vaccination argument. Both sides think they are right. Both sides think that they have the enlightened view of reality. Yeah. And the truth is exactly like you say, right? Oh, we are on this ascension path. To where? Through how? I think we should. I kind of agree that we should probably not destroy the world. Many people agree with that, but the actual practice of how are we not going to destroy the world is very different. Cameron has a couple more comments for us. So in his defense, he started when he was 7. Okay, you have defended yourself successfully, Evan. And then he said, I think they said it best, and he only gave us one word, desiderata. Like, tell me what does desiderata mean, Edmund? I have no idea what it means. What does it mean that this says it best, desiderata? So what does it mean? Tell us what he said, right? And I think, so on this, I don't know. I mean, I think I will say this from my own this is my own viewpoint, that I feel people do more harm in the name of good than they will ever do in the name of evil. So what do I mean by that? For example, if I was an evil conqueror going to take over another country, I wouldn't completely exterminate that country. Because why? I take over that country to get its resources, to make use of its people, and into some way profit, right? So I won't just destroy the whole place, because I ultimately want to save those resources, quite possibly grab some people as my slaves or whatever it is. But if you flip that equation, I'm not an evil person. I am a truly virtuous, upright, holy, religious person going out there to fight the infidels, to fight the, non-believers of the world. Then yes, I can possibly go in there and exterminate every single human being there, destroy the entire place, not even profit from it in any way, and then merrily come home, right? Like most religions have done that, right? I think very few religions can claim that in all of history they have never gone out. Very few major religions can claim that in all of history they've never gone out to another place to exterminate infidels or non-believers. So the amount of evil that can be done from a good, pious heart is way more than from an evil, mean, cruel heart. Really.
I think, for me, I think that in that situation, somebody believes that they're doing good. They've convinced themselves that what they're doing is good, but it's still coming from a place of fear, ultimately, because love wouldn't behave like that. And the way that somebody, creates a belief in their own mind that to justify their actions, I think a lot of humans can do that. I've probably done it myself a few occasions as well. But I think ultimately, when we're just, when we feel a connection to love and to God, whatever that means for people. Okay, so that's for me is about being completely connected to self, to our inner being. And I think, you know, we would not want to control others. We would not want to exploit others. We would want to empower and enable people to be successful, to grow, to learn, and to create a harmonious world in harmony with nature. I don't think we would, you know, we would destroy things. We would be wanting to preserve all life. And I think there is, so I think but there is a, you know, Mark's probably got a good input for this as well. I see there's a comment. Maybe you can read that and we'll dive into that.
So I'm bringing Mark up because he's supporting you very strongly. And he's saying that, you know, what I'm saying about the selfish gene is out of date, it's not true. That besides the chimpanzees, bonobos, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but bonobos are equally closely related to human beings. The society is matriarchal, you know, and it plays, you know, sex in those societies plays social cohesion, not purely for reproduction. And that, you know, it really depends on the context that they grow up in, not like the chimpanzees. And, you know, as human beings, we need to kind of think about what strategies we want to do. I'm going to say it's because they are matriarchal. Matriarchal. Yes. Not patriarchal. No, I'm just kidding. But what Mark is trying to say essentially is that it's not the gene that is driving us to these behaviors. It really is the decision that we make as a society, what we, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that ties very closely to what you're saying, right? That, you know, it's not that.
Yeah. I think we can create, you know, within society, we can create a, you know, some standards and some kind of a charter that says that this is, you know, can we get people to believe in this idea that if we heal, if we become more present, if we tap into our own inner gifts and talents, and you know, we can create beautiful things on the planet. And you know, the highest frequency on the planet is, you know, is love and equanimity and joyfulness, and, you know, and I think you know, gratitude, you know, these are all high energy frequencies, and I think these not only make us feel uplifted, but they make others around us feel uplifted too. And I do believe that what we send out, we get back. So I think that, you know, if we've got anger on the inside, we will attract situations to engage in anger. If we've got, you know, if we have got self-hatred on the inside, then I think the manifestation of that in the external is acts of evil. And I think that's perhaps what we would maybe see in different parts of the world when people are, you know, behaving very badly, they're killing people, you know, there's all sorts of dreadful things going on. I think it comes from a deep-rooted place of self-hatred, because I think when we become disconnected from our feelings, disconnected from the world, you know, our emotions, we become cold to emotion and completely desensitized to that, then we're capable of all sorts of dreadful things.
Yep. So I mean, Edmund has come back. I'm hearing a little bit of echo to myself. Are you hearing it? Okay, never mind then. So Edmund has come back to explain to us what is Desiderata. Desiderata is a poem, and I think it kind of expresses exactly what you were saying, right? To go placidly amid the noise and haze, to remember what peace there may be in silence, and as far as possible without surrender, on good terms with all persons, to speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and the ignorant. Okay, that what I disagree with, but anyway, so because they too have their story, to avoid loud, aggressive persons because they are vexatious to the spirit. And if you compare yourself to others, you may be vain or bitter because they'll always be better and worse than you. So I think that's the spirit that you're kind of talking about, you know, the gratitude, the going out there and living your own truth, regardless of whatever else is going on outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's about your own unique expression, and how you express that to the world, I think is when you're in your place of your highest empowered place, and you can create something very positive in the world when you're connected to your inner truth, and that comes from connection to spirit. And I think because so many people are disconnected from spirit and they're too attached to the ego mind, then that's what causes all the problems in the world. Ego is it comes from a place of fear and limitation, and we can get into all sorts of different ways of being there that are controlling, judgmental, aggressive, violent behavior, that kind of stuff. And we've all got prejudices that we develop as we're growing as well, that can lead to us maybe deeming certain groups of people as not as worthy as others, and all that kind of stuff, and it's very complex. But I think my experience of mindfulness is, if I think back to my journey, when I look back, I had a lot of trauma to unpick and undo, a lot of which I believe was not even things I maybe experienced in this life, but things that were ancestral in their nature. And I can remember being mean and cruel. I can remember being, I played football, and I was a very aggressive player, and I used to enjoy getting involved in very physical encounters, and I sometimes didn't care if I hurt somebody in that process. And looking back at that now, because I've changed a lot through this practice, I'm able to see where that was coming from in me. It was coming from a deeper place of disconnection. And now, I would be probably more fair if I was to put my boots back on now, and more kind. I actually can feel kind towards groups that I perhaps didn't in the past as well. Even like rivalry with other football teams,
Oh, you traitor! You can actually feel good about other
Absolutely.
football teams. That is terrible.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if any of you are out there are football fans, but I am. And no, I will not feel good about other football teams, especially they are my rivals. But no, I wanted to bring this up. I'm sorry, Facebook user. I don't know who you are. Please type your name into the comments so we can properly thank you. But today seemed to be the day for poems. So Rumi's poems on the guest house says, being a human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor, and welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows. It's Rohit. Hi, Rohit. And who may violently sweep your house empty of all furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing out for some delight, a dark thought, a shame. Melodies made them in the door laughing. So I think that's exactly what you've just said, right? I mean, this is who is Rohit. Hi, Rohit. Rohit has just survived COVID-19, a very really bad episode. And he's gone through probably all of the fear, the emotions, and so on. And it hits home, right? To say that really, hello. That's what he says. Yes. And just to say that whatever comes, and as you say, you are now aware that these are things that comes from your trauma, and that they can come, but they can also leave, right? They are not you, as in they are not the house.
Yeah, absolutely. These are the temporary emotional feelings that we can experience, and as they come in, they are there to often teach us things and allow us to be able to recognize things within us, to help us to shine a light on those, but not attach to them, not over-identify with them. It's a passing, impermanent experience that we can learn from. And the more we go through that process, and the more we kind of get over and work through some of these things that emerge to bring different little gifts of wisdom with them, we can grow each time. And that, I think, is helping us to get to that point where we become a much more conscious and loving being. And when we are giving that, when we feel that on the inside, we can express that out to others. And I think when we hold a space for another human as well, who is going through some kind of difficult period, if we learn how to hold a space for another human, which allows them to feel safe and there's trust there, and some really profound things can happen in that space. And I think this is what healing is really about. It's about being seen, being heard, and allowing one another to grow, and not try to dictate to others how they should be living their lives, judge and all the rest of it, but to understand that we've all had a different journey, different experiences, things ancestrally that we don't all understand. And the more that we can give compassion to people and understand their point of view without having to agree with their point of view, we can show understanding of it. I think that's where we can grow together as humanity. And I think we desperately need that right now, because we're in danger at the moment of being overwhelmed by power and subjugated and dominated and segregated and divided, rather than being unified and coming together, with a common desire to want to, live happily. But it's an interesting time. I think with more adversity, we're going to come closer together ultimately.
I'm not sure about that. Okay, but before we go on, I wanted to highlight Emma's comment, which is really that exactly what you said, right? So for us to get together and actually kind of look at life a little bit less transactional, to be willing to put in more deposits than we are drawing out of life, instead of going like, I will only treat people the way, like I will only treat people as nicely as life has treated me, but actually to put in more of the kindness deposit than we have taken out. And I completely agree with you that the world is getting polarized right now. I'm not sure whether it is power, but I think that the world is feeding to our basest instincts, right? To things like our tendency to love people who already agree with us, and I believe that is going towards a situation where it will be, I don't know. I mean, for us to overcome this will require us to overcome our own instincts. And I'm not sure whether that's something that will happen or not. And I think that the more adversity, actually, I don't feel that adversity brings out kindness and compassion. I actually feel adversity brings out more cruelty and meanness. Because it's like, very simple, like my country is peaceful and calm, the chances of me treating another race very meanly is quite low. I mean, I may have my personal prejudices, but the moment, say, we go to war, now your country is the enemy country and we are at war, and I'm suffering as a result of the acts of your country, then the chances of me behaving very cruelly to a person from your country is like way higher, right? Because that adversity, the suffering that I've gone through makes me more likely to want to lash out at somebody else, right? So that's something that I actually don't agree with, But I think on that note, I mean, we're coming to the top of the hour. I mean, after looking at all these different aspects, everything from upbringing to how the world is to where we should be going in terms of enlightenment, if there's one thing that you want our listeners today to take away with them, one thing, from all of this discussion, what do you want them to know?
For me, I think it's essential right now that we make our way back to love in terms of our inner environment, how we cultivate that. And it's not an easy journey for everybody. And for most people, it can be challenging. But I think it's so needed right now. Love and tolerance for all beings, I think, is what we need. But also self-responsibility. Because unfortunately, if we've got ideas that we need others to protect us, we need others to save us, others to govern for us, rather than self-governance, we will attract people perhaps that won't treat us particularly well in the end. And I think it's now time to look at the people who are guiding us towards certain places, guiding countries into war, and actually saying, are these the people that we want to support and follow, or do we want to go back to connecting in with ourself and our deepest truth, and really reconnecting communities again, so that we can self-govern and we can take responsibility for ourselves and those around us? Because I think we've now got into a place where we've been too maybe focused on, seeking out pleasure, becoming distracted by important things that have been going on in the world for many, many years, that are now manifesting into something much greater than perhaps we want to look at. But I think we do have to face it and look at it. And this last 17 months has really brought that into I think our greater awareness. And not everybody can see it yet, because we're all at different levels of consciousness and understanding of what may or may not be going on and playing out. But I do hope that more people can step back a little bit from the fear and what's going on in the world, and really allow themselves to entertain other points of view. Because I think, the stuff you're doing here is great, because it allows people to come together, maybe not necessarily fully agree, but still be able to put some really constructive points forward that have got merit. And I think this is the way we can really bring people closer together.
I was going to tell you that you have two converters. So Edmund agrees. He says he'll be consciously less mean to
That's
people.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes.
I agree.
And even Rohit agrees with you. He says, yes, he totally agrees with you. And he has a long comment. So this is in the 20th century across the world. Most leaders speak in unimaginable ways through social and mass media. And the speech of one leader can go viral easily around the world. So as we look at this global sort of communication, there are examples of speech used to inflame passion for violence, to separate people into tribes, and very few speak to peace and harmony.
Yeah.
So people justify harsh speech because they feel they are speaking on behalf of a worthy cause.
That's right.
And I think that you are right. Demagogues are dominating the world right now. I don't know how we cannot individually fight it, but I will say this, that I think, like what you've said, right, being a little bit more conscious, being consciously a little less mean, like what Edmund has said, and actually being a little bit aware of the other, I think will be helpful in many ways. I'm not sure if Mark wants to chime in about social mindfulness, but being aware of what the other person is going through and what they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, thank you very much. Sorry. Yeah, so thank you very much for being here today, Gary. Thank you very much. I hope that you've convinced at least some people, because I also would love to live in a world where people are, passionate, compassionate, as well as, enlightened. So I hope you've convinced some people to be that. And today, tomorrow we are going to be on. So if you are not on the mailing list, let me know. Tomorrow we're going to put a summary post of everything that everyone has said up. And on Saturday we have a Clubhouse session where we will be discussing this live, and do come and join us if you want to hear your voice and speak up about it. And next week we are doing this exact same every week. Next week we are talking about complexity. I'm talking to Eugen, and Eugen's topic is very simple, which is stop trying to solve complex problems with even more complex solutions. So next week we're going to talk about complexity. But today, thank you so much, Gary. I really appreciate this. I really appreciate your time and the wisdom you have shared with us on how we can be more mindful, more compassionate, and to build this world. I guess to do our little 1 cent, 2 cents worth to push this world towards greater kindness.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. It's been great to be part of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. See you. Bye-bye.